It's time for 10 minutes of Flames talk.
Yeah. Now, with Johnny, I think that with Johnny Gaudreau, though, this is a very different issue because he's an unrestricted free agent. He's got decisions to make. And I think that Brad Treliving and Daryl Sutter and the Flames management group do have to sell him on the idea of staying in Calgary. And I think that will happen with playoff success. The issue with Matthew is a bit different. And there's two other issues with here. I don't think that anybody realistically, we don't hear Johnny Gaudreau in a captaincy conversation. I've never had Johnny Gaudreau as an idea of a captain. And have you? Just want to clarify. Would you put Johnny? Okay. So we put Johnny in a bit of a different place here. He's a face of the franchise, superstar player, dynamic. Maybe he might need a haircut, but face of the franchise. Matthew's a bit different because Matthew Tkachuk has portrayed himself as a leader of the team. Let's go back a couple years ago when they were in the bubble and Matthew is smashing things because he's out with a concussion and the Flames are eliminated with Dallas with that whole debacle of how the goaltending was handled in that whole game. We had the situation with the puck flip with Jake Muzzin a couple years ago, and people were calling for Matthew Tkachuk to wear the C. Mark Giordano leaves for expansion with the Kraken. We have no captain. There was a lot of people. We even had the discussion on our podcast when we were back. Remember the days when we were the hockey podcast, Sean? It just seems like 2 months ago. Anyway, we discussed Matthew Tkachuk being a captain. He is in a situation where he's going to have a qualifying offer. Now, I think that this is an interesting point. If he's a leader of this team, if he wants to be a leader, this is an opportunity to sacrifice here. See, I guess my issue is I don't expect him to I don't expect him to take less, but I would also admire him as a leader if he did. If that makes sense.
No, that totally makes sense. I don't expect him to take less either. It's actually we go back and I'm pretty sure and I'm sure Devin has clips of me saying things that might contradict this, or he'll pull something up that or whatever. But I'm pretty sure I've been questioning the fact whether or not Matthew should be the next captain of the Flames throughout this whole discussion. For me, he's too much of a loose cannon. And I think you need you do still need that emotional leader. Canucks have JT Miller, Flames have Matthew Tkachuk. I would say I would say Austin Matthews a little bit like that on the Leafs. He's got a little bit more fire to him in that aspect. Braden Point's that for the Lightning. If you want to go to the two-time defending Stanley Cup champs, they've got him. But it's you do need that, but I also think you need to make sure that you have a good, solid, sort of steadying captain more often than not. And I just don't see that being. I don't see that being Matthew. And not to mention the fact that if you're going to be a captain, you need to be a little more selfless and not spend a whole summer negotiating down to the final penny of a contract negotiation. You should be able to get that contract done as quickly as possible. I know a lot of the way things are negotiated now, a lot of it is based off of deadlines, and even Bo Horvat went down to a bit of a deadline in when he signed his last contract too. But I still think there needs to be something like that. There needs to be some give and take. And if you want to be given the C, you have to take a bit of a pay cut, in my opinion, if you're Matthew Tkachuk.
Well, let's bring, there's another perspective to this. In terms of what Matthew has been this year, I don't think this has been the Matthew of previous years. I think in a lot of ways his game has calmed down a lot. There's not been a lot of ruckuses and fruckuses with Matthew. He's been doing a little bit of the between the leg goals, I think, at a little bit of it in inopportune times. I think it's when it's 6-2, I don't think you need that seventh goal to go between the legs. I mean, I know it looks pretty cool, but it's calmed down now. And the other thing that I think plays well into this is Brady and Keith were not necessarily on great teams. Keith was with the Winnipeg Jets. When he was with the Jets, they were not Stanley Cup contenders. Brady and the Ottawa Senators are in rebuild. So you're probably in a position to take a little bit. You're going to fight a little bit more. Matthew has Daryl Sutter, and I think that there is a modicum of a huge amount of respect of what Daryl Sutter is, that you almost wonder if he's willing to stick around for Daryl. That I could see that being a possibility. I'm not saying that it could be, but I think that will can play into this.
I think there's a little bit of that for sure. I also think I could see, I think a lot of it, as you said with Gaudreau, a lot of it comes down to what team success they have go for the rest of this season and going into the playoffs.
Yeah.
If they don't have that, then there's no way you're going to be able to sell them on anything like that. They're going to, that's success. You need success first to be able to have that conversation.
Yeah.
And that's when it happened with Bergeron and all the Bruins, and you go back to Kessler and all that, like there was some team success before that even happened, or they were able to sell them on the progression of the team, as opposed to as I said, that's why this is such an interesting conversation to have right now for the Flames, is that other than that one season when they won the division a few years back, they've had one
first round win since 2004.
Exactly. Like it's just been mediocrity for the better part of almost 20 years now.
Yeah. Yeah.
So it's not like they have a history of a recent history of success that they can say, look, we know how this is where this team's going, and that we're good at that.
Yeah.
But again, it's all on the team to sell them on it. But I do think that in a hard cap world, if you want to win and you're a star player, whether it is a superstar or even like someone who's sort of a fringe first liner, that conversation does happen. And there are contracts that have been done, and players have taken less to go to places that they think are better suited for them and that are better suited for winning than others.
Yeah.
Let's look at how the Flames have one right now. The Edmonton Oilers offered more money to Jacob Markstrom, and he still chose Calgary. So,
yeah.
So it does happen. You are able to talk to convince these players. So why can't it be for a star player that's re-signing with a team that's already built them up?
We did forget one person that did take less money and stayed. And it was a few years ago, but Steven Stamkos stayed in Tampa as opposed to going to the Leafs, who offer. I think they offered the Brinks trunk. I mean, it was almost a parade to Stamkos is coming to Toronto, and he chose Tampa. So that there is examples of it. But the other thing that I hope happens, and again, I think you and I do agree that the NHLPA is a disaster. I'm sorry, it is. But what would be nice is opportunities in these in contracts where, like in the NFL and other leagues, that you can restructure mid-contract to say, okay, let's just say for a second, let's throw Connor McDavid in this conversation. I'll take $2 million less for now, so we can get a goalie to actually save a puck. That there's opportunities during your contract, the time during your contract, that you can adjust, you can do a salary adjustment to help with the cap.
Yeah, the problem with that is that the part, like, that is the issue with this, is you got hard caps with a hard cap with guaranteed contracts.
Yeah.
So there's no way to do that. And yeah, you do see that in the NFL where teams do renegotiate contracts to open up cap space. And the other thing, I believe the NFL is more about, like, it's the salary that is the quote unquote cap hit in the NFL. So you could have someone whose salary is $6 million one year and $4 million the next, and the cap is $6 million in one and $4 million in the next. So it's a lot, and a lot of that restructuring and everything that happens there is just shuffling money around from year to year. So that's not something that can be done under the current CBA when it's the annual average that is the cap hit. So
yeah,
and I don't see Gary wanting that. I don't see the PA wanting that either, because that is, I think they fought tooth and nail for the guaranteed contracts because they didn't want to have someone, like, if contracts weren't guaranteed, Travis Hamonic wouldn't be on the Canucks. Louis Eriksson would have been cut long ago, right?
Right. Yeah.
You wouldn't have had the James Neal for Milan Lucic trade because they both would have been cut. So
yeah.
It would be a lot more interesting, I think, in terms of player movement and all that. But yeah, it's really, I get where you're coming from, Kevin. That, and for armchair GMs and all that, I think it would be a lot more fun. But it's just a different animal, and I know there's talk, like, there's a couple agents out there, including like Alan Walsh, pounding on desks for a luxury tax system, not a hard cap system. But I don't see Gary wanting that. I think the cost certainty is so much that I don't think they want to go anywhere past that.
Yeah, I think the current financial world would, or right now, that's where the NHL is at. But if there is a way that you could take from the contract and add some more endorsement deals to, that's where NFL play in the NFL. Okay, they're losing $2 or $3 million here, but they're gaining $3 or $4 million from an endorsement deal. That's they're not really losing that money. They're just making it in a different area. And that would be great to see in an NHL world. But right now in this financial world, it's impossible. But it would be nice, and I think that would help the situation. But again, the Oilers spent $2.1 million on Evander Kane and not getting a goalie. That's their problem. So that's all I'd say. There, yeah. But in terms of captain, there is a name I am going to throw out here that I think should be in the conversation, and I think the Flames did the right thing. And I don't think we're going to see a captain this year. I think it will not be until next year, and I guess we'll see. And again, it's going to all depend on what happens. But I'm going to throw his name in. I think Elias Lindholm has a chance to be captain. I think he's got a reasonable salary. I think it's very probable that he could spend a long time with the Flames. I think that's what is appearing to me. He's very he's already sacrificed his offense by moving to center although he's scored in 8 or 9 straight games and he's still scoring. But his offensive numbers could be way up if he decided to be the right winger. He chose to be the center. He chose the harder road. And to me, he would be the guy, one of the guys that has to be in the conversation to wear the C.
For more, go to follow us on Twitter at Shifts and Pucks, Facebook.com Shifts and Pucks, YouTube.com Shifts and Pucks, Twitch.com Shifts and Pucks, and subscribe wherever you get your audio.